Good morning. Good morning. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Thanks for joining us. Got people still filing in here. Decent crowd with some familiar names. Good morning. All right, Dan. So good morning. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Works with DW Spectrum webinar. Glad you were able to join us this morning. This morning, we are fortunate enough to be joined by Mr. Dan Shore from TOA Electronics. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about TOA Electronics and how it works with DW Spectrum. We'll get into that and just some. I think we've got a great demo for this. This is a fun product to play with. So especially in the Spectrum world. So Dan, why don't we just start off by just telling us a little bit about TOA Electronics?
Sure. TOA Electronics is an 80-year-old plus company, originally established in Kyoto, Japan, and we've been in the United States for, I believe, 46, 47 years now. We are based now in Secaucus, New Jersey. We had offices in San Francisco for many, many years. We're best known for our power amplifiers, our pro audio stuff, and as time moves on, we move on, so we're moving into this world of video and security and SIP communication, VMS communication. We have regional sales managers across the United States and a wide dealer network. So the products are available almost anywhere you need to go.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you as a technology partner, and specifically the product that we're talking about today is your IP speaker horn speaker, excuse me.
So this is the first of a series of IP speaker products that we are coming out with. The IPA1 series is designed specifically for this type of application, for SIP communication, point-to-point communication, multicast, and for use with video management systems. So we will be coming out after the first of the year with line-level output devices, ceiling speakers, for surface mount speakers, paging gateways, excuse me, a full range of products for you. But this has been out now for about 6 months in the United States, and we've had great response to it.
Yeah, so why don't we get into some of the screens, and we'll dig into this a little bit later as well. Go ahead.
All right. So just to give you an idea of how simple it is to get around in the system. VMS broadcasting, turn it on, turn it off. In your case, it's going to be on. Your username and password have to be the same. You're going to save that, and
we're going to move to.
Then you're going to make sure that your port is the same at 9080. You can also, well, as I just said, you click the save the settings and changes on that. I'll show you usable characters here in a minute. So for names, authentication, and ID, passwords, basically the symbols at the bottom are not allowed. Anything else is allowed on these. So if you're setting up username, password, any of that stuff, you're going to need to be aware that if you put a pound sign in there, it's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Next. There's a little bit more freedom when it comes for file names. You can use basically anything.
Okay.
So we have the audio settings screen. We have the ability to set individual speaker volumes, mute speakers. One thing is the mute is active when the box is checked. Sometimes people will get confused on that. You have a master volume and an offset volume that will allow you to vary the level of the speaker during the day or through a clock managed system. We have the ability to control the input volumes of different sources so you can match the output volume of each source and you don't jump between. For example, if your SIP broadcast call is plus 10 dB from your VMS broadcast, you need to make adjustments. This is where you do that.
So I'm going to go off script for a question that came in and you've mentioned, because you've mentioned it a couple times, and I just want to make sure the audience understands. Can you explain just briefly SIP? I mean,
sure. SIP is Session Initiation Protocol, and it is the way that VoIP phones communicate. So in order for a SIP system to work, there's a SIP server, and then you would typically, with your phone system, you would dial the number, you would program the phone to identify with that number, and you have great flexibility in grouping numbers and setting up paging, things like that. But it's basically a voice over IP phone system.
So it's to tie the speaker into a voice over IP system, and basically so that you can dial an extension at your desk and make an announcement out through this horn speaker.
Correct. And if you have a paging gateway and multicast, then you can make pages to different zones throughout your facility.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go to the next one here.
All right, so we have the ability to store in each horn about 80 megabytes of audio. Uploading the audio is very, very simple. You connect the horn to the IP address, and although it's difficult to see on my screen, you'll hit the upload button on files you want to upload, and the positions are going to be loaded into. You can
we'll log into one here shortly, and so it'll show it a little bit bigger.
Right. So you can upload files, you can download files for transfer to other devices, or you can delete the file itself.
So this is putting the audio file directly on the device, and you got about 80 megabits of space to work with. And what was it, about 20 files you can put on there?
Yes.
Okay. And they can be either MP3 or WAV files.
Correct.
That you can load up on the individual device. Very cool.
All right. The event settings screen. An event is how you're going to trigger this device. So typically for working with DW, you're going to set it on VMS, and anytime there's an audio VMS signal there, it will trigger and put out that message. You can have different priorities for messaging. For example, if you have a SIP phone system that you're also paging through these horns with, you can put that on a lower priority. You'll see on I think the next or the one after the priority setting page.
Yep.
There we go. So we have a large number of priorities because you can do multicast paging directions. Each horn can be a member of 10 multicast groups, and those can be set up in priority so that your VMS is top, your paging is second, your others go down the line. And this should take care of just about any situation that you run into.
Awesome. All right, the setting tool.
So we have a piece of software that makes setup a little bit easier so that you're not in your computer individually configuring 120 horns for a site. You can connect one and set it up, and then sequentially it will assign IP addresses to all of the rest of your speakers with the same configuration. Makes life much, much easier. Also, troubleshooting is much, much easier. And you can upload firmware from this, so you can do a batch upload of firmware.
Okay.
And as I just mentioned,
Sequential, yeah.
there you go.
All right, so we, the next one's just get into the demo itself. And I'll start off with, slide out of the PowerPoint here for a second. And I'll just start off with in the DW knowledge base, we put a kind of a quick little integration guide together of how to attach an IP speaker to DW Spectrum. So we do link to your product page where you can get the configuration software that you just mentioned. But basically, this walks you through the device itself and the defaults as far as how it's set up for the default. Here's again a link to the IP setting tool right from our website. Bring you to this page. We'll log into this here in just a second. But this just kind of walks you through how to get that IP speaker right into the site tree and what it's going to look like. And so we were able to run through this yesterday pretty easily. That slide over here, we'll open this up. And we'll go to one of our demo systems here. So as a lot of people know, but maybe some people don't, you can, in Spectrum, you can add a web page. And when you add that web page, you can check this proxy, this web page via as a server. So the speaker is sitting on our internal network, but we have added it and proxied it here. So I'm not at this particular location, but I drag this over. And again, this is a view that only I see because of my user rights into this particular system as an administrator. But here we can get into those menu pages, Dan, that you were just kind of reviewing with us in the PowerPoint. So you get your status tab showing the IP address and the MAC address, volume, firmware version, and so forth for this. Your network settings, your SIP settings, to tie this into your voice over IP. You got your VMS broadcasting. This was the page that you showed. And so you see here the control port is 9090, RTSP at 554, and then your username and password to log into it. Those audio, so audio settings here with your volume adjustments. And so this was the one that you were referring to, Dan, as far as the where you can upload your files, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so it's going to show you a little estimation of how much space as you keep adding them in there. Great. Anything else we should look at in here, Dan, while we're here?
Okay. So control, you can have a control hit when you've got a signal going in VMS. So signal mode level is like a momentary switch to trigger the sound file. The other option, if you'll click it, it's under signal mode.
Sorry.
Up.
Oh, here. Okay.
Right. Okay. You have level and edge, and this is the Japanese way of toggle or momentary. So level will turn on, you press it to turn on the WAV file, and then you'll press it again to turn it off. And it will run until you press it again to turn it off. So we'll just repeat.
Keep repeating. Okay.
And you can choose normally open or normally closed.
Gotcha. And this would be where you set your priorities.
Right.
Between the
go back one slide, please.
Sure.
Yep. Okay, and you'll want to set your control out action if you're going to. There's a normally open, normally closed relay on the output of this. You want to set that if you're going to trigger it for VMS broadcasting. So when you hit it with a VMS, then you can trigger a warning light or a strobe or something else like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Priority screen.
Yep, there you go. So and this is where you enter and change your username and password.
And where you can update the firmware.
Yeah, and the ability to configure and download that configuration so that you can copy that between sites it'll save you time.
Yeah. There you go. You want to know where that is. All right. So that's the web pages of the horn speaker, and then the horn speaker itself. So what we did in Spectrum, you have two ways of doing this. If you're system administration, if you've enabled the auto discovery, because this is an ONVIF device, the Spectrum will automatically find it and load it, or you can always just right click inside of here, do the add device, and have it scan for that particular device once you put it on the network with the login information for the IP speaker horn. So that gets it, and that's key for Spectrum users, is to get it into the site tree as a device sitting here with all your other cameras.
Patrick, one more thing. When you have it scanned manually, you use port 9090.
Yep. Yeah, so remember that port setting that you got. So when you're adding the device, so we're going to come back in here. Oops. Right click on the server, say add device. So yeah, you can uncheck what Paul's saying is you can uncheck this box. And so if it was set for 9090, you want to put 9090 in here. You can have it scanned for that with the login information that you made for the horn speaker as well. But that gets it into the device list, and that's important from a Spectrum standpoint to get it into that device list. Again, your users are only going to see what they have access to, but as an administrator, you're seeing everything, so you're going to see all the devices attached to this. The reason it's important to have this device in the device list is now you can do things with that device. And what I mean by that is that, so here you see we've got a couple of soft triggers programmed on this particular camera, but you'll notice there's no microphone on this camera, right? So in the camera settings, we can enable the audio and we can enable the two-way audio. And so by enabling the two-way audio, this is where we can associate this IP speaker with this particular camera. So I can come in here and say, all right, here's the IP speaker that I want to associate this with. Click here, click apply. And now when we look at the icons in the lower right, there's a microphone here. So if I press this microphone, I'm now communicating to the office in Tampa, and Paul's hearing me downstairs talking through this.
Oh, I got to run downstairs. Hold on.
Okay. No, it's okay. So that's how we get it into the and associate it with a particular camera inside of Spectrum. Next thing we can do inside of Spectrum involves the camera rules, right? So There's Paul. Okay, we're going to do this. So if I talk to Paul here, if I say, hey, Paul, hold up 3 fingers. Okay, there you go. So as you can see, he's listening to me now. Hold up 5 fingers, Paul. Dance, monkey. All right. All right. Anyway, so that's the talk down capability inside of Spectrum from a user standpoint, that you can communicate with the site right through the speaker, right from the camera. So you don't have to necessarily bring up the individual device. You can bring up the device and you get the same functionality in the device by itself window here in the lower right. You see the same microphone and you can communicate to that. But this is actually associating that speaker output with this particular camera. So the next, the big thing with this capability is in the rules engine and some of the things that we can do inside of it. So you'll see that we can play a sound. So those soft triggers, those buttons, we can associate those with particular cameras. We can put an icon there. We can give it a trigger name. We can even schedule when this is on and off, so you can control this right from Spectrum. You also have, so Dan talked about all these sounds that are on the speaker itself. In addition to the 80 megabytes and the 20 sound files that you can load on the speakers, you can load those sound files into DW Spectrum, and you can control them and play them right from here. So the action of play sound can be triggered not just from a soft trigger. It could be on a, we have one application where when a camera is disconnected, they want an audio file played. So we can say that, camera disconnect equals play sound. So any of these types of things, analytic events, a particular object of an analytic identified, so a vehicle or person in the area. Generic events, so any third-party device, point of sale, access control can trigger to play sound, as well as an input signal, motion on camera, or the soft trigger as we're using. And so to create that play sound, you're selecting the action of play sound, and here's where having that device in the device tree becomes important, is that you can select that particular device and say, this is the device I want to play the sound through. You have the ability to adjust the interval of action. You can, and then you can also give, again, control which users are going to be able to see the soft trigger and be able to do this action. And you've got the preloaded ones in here, as well as you can manage those. So this is where you can add wave files to your Spectrum system directly, rather than to the individual speaker, and play it through here as well. So that's an important way to do it, or a neat way to do it, in terms of being able to play, not just do voice down, but also play sounds or play recorded messages right from the Spectrum interface to the device, automatically based off of any of these events coming in the Spectrum. In addition, Dan and I were just talking right before this call, and so the speakers also have the ability to receive HTTP. So there is the remote API. Let me bring up this document that Dan provided. So Dan, you want to briefly explain this document on your side?
Sure. So there we go. You can play patterns, set volumes, move volumes up and down. It has some SIP functions as well for phones. You can force stop of all broadcasting. You can get the status of the horn speaker as well. It requires a little bit of programming, but this certainly works well within your system, so that you can broadcast these along with your SMS message.
So what this means is basically I can take the information that's residing on the speaker. So if you've loaded that WAV file onto the speaker and you've got it there, you can basically this is very similar to how we turn on and off lights using the Night Watch product in Spectrum. Is that in the rules engine, instead of play sound, you can say do HTTP request and take the syntax from Dan's document there. So this down here in terms of that information. So the IP address of the speaker, API, tell it to play a pattern, set the volume so you get adjustable volume, and the interval to it, in this case, can all be programmed in here, and then you put the login information for the speaker. So again, you could have this occur automatically on a, for instance, an analytic event. So when when a vehicle is detected after hours, so let's turn this off here. We can have that speaker play that sound automatically right from here. Okay. So again, another powerful way to do it using the HTTP function as well is also in there.
I don't think so.
Web page, control it.
We got a couple of questions you can.
Yeah, let's look at the questions and see what we got here. Talk about grouping these devices. We can group them all together. We've got to get a couple devices in, but I'm pretty sure we could select multiple speakers back over here in the rules engine where we pick the individual device. So we could say play sound and have it hit to multiple speakers from this list, because it would allow you to check multiple boxes here.
Now, optionally, you could trigger that through HTTP and do a multicast.
So there's multiple ways to do it. You could do it directly using the multicast functions inside the speaker, or using the checkboxes inside of DW Spectrum. So a question about someone saying there's no two-way audio. There's two-way audio as long as you have a microphone connected. We did not connect a microphone for this particular demonstration. We're just using the audio out. So that's the one way. But yeah, there's absolutely two-way audio. So if you're using one of our V7 series cameras that has a built-in microphone, or if you're using some of the audio inputs from the cameras and connected an external microphone, again, in the camera settings, you would enable the audio. That's going to trip the audio input. So if you've got a microphone connected to a particular camera, you're going to select the camera with the microphone connected to it. You're going to click OK. And then enabling two-way audio is the audio out where you want it to transmit. So basically having coming in on this stream and coming out on this audio stream. Yes, there's absolutely two-way audio with this.
And just a side note on the IPA1 product coming out, the flush mount, surface mount speakers, and the audio bridge, those will all have a microphone level input.
Okay, great.
Oh, so you'll be able to plug a mic right into them.
Yeah, not this one though.
Okay.
Okay. Does not require any additional licensing. So this device is sitting and it's sitting in our site tree, and there's no additional licensing required. So if I go to, for instance, come here, bring the speaker up, and we look at the settings inside of Spectrum, you'll see that it doesn't really even give you the chance to apply a license to it. Because it's not a video device, it's just an audio device, and Spectrum sees that. And so there's really nothing to really, well, you could actually throw it to it, but
it doesn't do anything. It actually turns it off.
Yeah.
When you turn it on, you hit apply, it turns it off.
Yeah.
Spectrum's too smart.